Russell Wilson planning to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Kirk Cousins has agreed to a 4-year deal with the Atlanta Falcons.
The Bucs and Baker Mayfield have agreed on a 3-year deal.
We need to talk about the most important position in sports, the coach on the field in the game of football. We need to talk quarterbacks, and specifically quarterback moves that have happened in the last 48 hours, because there is so much that's gone on with huge implications to each team. Let's break down each quarterback move that's happened in free agency so far here in 2024. Let's start with the NFC South. Baker Mayfield signed a 3-year, $100 million contract for an average of $33 million a year. Some really smart person on YouTube called those exact numbers, actually. The contract includes $50 million in guarantees. So the Buccaneers had two big question marks coming into this offseason. Question 1, can we re-sign Mike Evans? Question 2, can we re-sign Baker Mayfield? The answer is yes and yes. On the Baker contract, I give the Bucs an A+, because you go back to last year, they signed Baker for a 1-year deal for $4 million. That is a steal for a starting quarterback in the NFL. The Bucs wound up winning the division. They wound up making it to the second round of the playoffs this year. I'd actually say they exceeded expectations this season. And now with all of that, they're able to get their quarterback back for an average of $33 million a year on a 3-year deal that's really easy for them to get out of after year 1. So if Baker has a bad year this year and they realize, okay, we made a big mistake, it's easy for the Bucs to get out of it. For Baker, I give him an A-. I think this is a great deal for him. I think it's a great signing. $50 million in guaranteed money is never anything to scoff at. I think that if he would have tested free agency, maybe he could have got a little bit more. Maybe Vegas would have been willing to go a little bit higher. Maybe they could have got closer to $40 million, especially once details of Kirk Cousins' contract dropped. Kirk Cousins is getting an average of $45 million a year. So it wouldn't be crazy to think that maybe Baker could have gotten to 37 to 40, somewhere in there. But you know what? If I'm Baker Mayfield and I'm happy in Tampa and I've got the deep receiving core I like, I've got the offensive line that I like, I've got a good situation here. It's a team that's only a few pieces away from being a legitimate contender. I think this is a good move for Baker Mayfield. Now, let's get back to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins signed a 4-year, $180 million contract with the Atlanta Falcons, averaging $45 million a year. I feel like someone said that already. The contract includes $100 million in guarantees. For the Falcons, I give them a B- on this deal. I think that it's a good signing. I think it's an upgrade to the quarterback position from what they have. I think they addressed a position that's been a headache for them since they traded Matt Ryan back in 22. The reason I can't quite bring it up to an A is because that's a lot of guaranteed money for a guy whose former team doesn't want him. He's coming off of an Achilles injury, and he's 35 years old, and he's 1-3 in the playoffs. This is a good deal for the Falcons. They definitely needed an upgrade from Desmond Ridder. They definitely needed an upgrade from Taylor Heineke. And maybe a year or two from now, we'll look back and we'll go, no, that was actually an A+ deal. But we could just as easily go back and say, it's a C- deal. I think because I can see those two things being just as likely as one another, that's why I have to put it at a B. Now, for Kirk Cousins and his agent, it's definitely an A+. Kirk Cousins, by the end of this contract, will have exceeded $100 million in career earnings. The Pittsburgh Steelers have signed Russell Wilson to a $1.2 million contract. Now, why would Russell Wilson agree to this? Because he's still in a contract with the Denver Broncos that includes offset language up to $39 million. Meaning, because the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to pay him $1.2 million, the Broncos are still on the hook for $37.8 million. So Russell Wilson's going to make $39 million this year, but his new team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, only has to pay him $1.2. I give the Steelers not just an A, not just an A+. I give them like an A+++++. This is a perfect move from the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is no downside to this move. One way to look at this is your worst case scenario is that Russell Wilson doesn't play all that well, so you use him as your backup. It only costs you $1.2 million. He's a $1.2 million backup to Kenny Pickett this year. And with his experience, you got to figure he could be helpful in the quarterback room, even as a backup. Another worst case scenario is that he takes you deep into the playoffs, maybe even to the Super Bowl, And then you got to figure out how to keep this guy on your team next year, but you only had him on a 1-year deal. Even then, that's still not even that bad because you can just slap a franchise tag on him if you need to. If you'd rather negotiate a long-term deal with him at that point, you have the inside track. It's too easy to get a deal done from there, assuming both sides are interested, which if you make it that far, I'd assume both sides would be interested. I think that Russell Wilson and Mike Tomlin are going to get along famously. I think that Russell was never better than when he had Pete Carroll. I think that Pete Carroll's philosophy to coaching and Mike Tomlin's philosophy to coaching, I think there's some similarities there. Both defensive-minded guys, both players type of coaches. And for Mike Tomlin, he's probably excited to have a veteran Super Bowl winning quarterback on the team again for the first time since Creepy Ben left back in 2022. For Russell's grade on this, I kind of just want to give him an exemption because I feel like this was kind of the deal he was going to get no matter where he went. Maybe he could have got someone to give him a long-term deal, in which case I'd feel differently, but pretty much for anyone, it makes sense to sign Russell to $1.2 million and just leave it at that. Let the Broncos foot the maximum amount of the bill. So I don't think that Russell really gets a grade here. If you feel cheated by that, fine, I'll give him an A. Former New Jersey Jets, Carolina Panthers, San Francisco 49ers quarterback Sam Darnold has signed a 1-year deal with the Minnesota Vikings, reportedly worth up to $10 million. We don't have specific details on the deal yet, but for the Vikings, I give them a B on this deal. I think they addressed the quarterback position in a low-risk, high-reward way. I do think that any quarterback we've seen on the Jets or the Panthers in the last 4 years, we don't really have an accurate assessment during that point in time because the Jets and the Panthers both similarly have terrible offensive lines, no receiving core, inconsistent coaching structures, horribly run organizations. I just don't think that it's fair to assess a quarterback who's been playing in those circumstances. Now, what Sam Darnold did, which was brilliant, after leaving the Panthers, he went to San Francisco to go be a backup to Brock Purdy. He beat out Trey Lance for that backup job. He played sharp in the preseason. And now with the Minnesota Vikings, who do have a good offensive line, who do have a deep receiving core, I think that he's in his best position in a long time. This might be the best position he's ever been in to be successful. The New Jersey Giants are signing former Broncos and former Seahawks quarterback Drew Lock to a 1-year, $5 million deal. I give the Giants an A on this deal. There's really no downside. I don't believe in Daniel Jones whatsoever. I am amazed at the contract that the Giants gave him. I am shocked that they want to be married to that guy, and I think that they know it was a mistake by this point. Drew Lock can come in there and be a guy who can either serve as Daniel Jones' backup, which for $5 million a year, that's not a problem. Or he could even be a guy that might even compete with Daniel Jones for the starting job, in which case, if you feel like Drew Lock could be your quarterback, well, now you're paying $5 million this year for a starting quarterback, which is a steal in the NFL. I just don't see a downside for the Giants. And for Drew Lock, I give him an A. I think that when he got traded from Denver to Seattle, we all thought that he was going to be the starter for the Seahawks. Nobody saw that Geno Smith turnaround happening. He got 2 starts this last season due to Geno being injured. I think that this is the opportunity Drew Lock's been waiting for. He's making $1 million more this year than he made last year, and he's going to be in a better opportunity for him. So for Drew Lock, I give him an A on this deal. The Cleveland Browns are signing Jameis Winston to serve as a backup to Deshaun Watson. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know how I feel about Deshaun Watson. I'll drop my take in the related videos tab, but can I just say, I think this signing is a very bad look for the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson was accused by 30 different women of sexual harassment and or assault. I know he was never found guilty. Jameis Winston was accused of raping a woman back when he was at Florida State University, and he was also never found guilty, to be clear, but it might be worth noting that FSU did pay the woman just under $1 million to make the lawsuit go away. Having said that, we do live in a country of innocent till proven guilty, and I want to remember that when we talk about situations like this, because you also run into situations like the Matt Azaria situation. Matt Azaria was accused of rape, cut by the Buffalo Bills, just for us to find out that he had an alibi. He wasn't even at the party of the alleged gang rape that he was being accused of. He wasn't even at the party at the time that that alleged incident was taking place. If you like a story with a happy ending, Matt Azaria did find his way back to the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs just signed him this offseason. But when we're talking about Jameis Winston, we should note that back at FSU, that wasn't the only accusation he's ever had. Back in 2016, he was accused by an Uber driver of grabbing her crotch area while they were waiting at a drive-thru. The driver filed a complaint with Uber immediately. Winston was banned from Uber services, and in 2018, Kate, the Uber driver, actually made a statement on the matter. She said, "I'm glad to see the NFL discipline Jameis Winston. I do appreciate his apology, even if it needs some work. I would like to publicly acknowledge the NFL investigators, particularly Lisa Friel and John Ianrelli, for their kind, professional, and thorough investigation. My experience should highlight the importance of believing women when they have the courage to come forward about sexual assault. Perhaps that night could have been prevented if others had been believed before me." Mr. Winston once said, "Girls should be silent, polite, and gentle." I disagree. Hashtag me too. Well, what can I say? Great statement by Kate. And I do want to say that in regards to Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston, Ben Roethlisberger, and anyone else who's ever been accused but not found guilty of sexual assault. Sexual assault/rape is the most difficult thing to prove in a court of law. Unless you have video evidence corroborated by a rock-solid testimony, it quickly turns into he said, she said. It is so hard to prove consent, non-consent. It's so hard to prove who's telling the truth, who's lying, unless we develop the technology to have like a 100% accurate, super duper lie detector. There's just no real way to figure out who's telling the truth and who's not. Just because you weren't found guilty of sexual assault doesn't mean you didn't do it. Having said all of that, if I was morally bankrupt owner of the Cleveland Browns, Jimmy Haslam, I don't think I would have signed Jameis Winston. Even if I thought the accusations of him weren't true, I still wouldn't sign him because it just doesn't make the organization look good, and that's just too much heat to take on for a backup quarterback. I mean, look, this is the same organization that didn't care that Deshaun Watson was accused by 30 different women of sexual harassment and assault, and not only didn't care, but they made a massive trade to bring him in, paid him $230 million fully guaranteed. The most guaranteed money in NFL history goes to the guy accused by 30 different women of sexual assault. So I just don't think it looks good that both of your quarterbacks have those kinds of accusations against them. But even getting away from Jameis Winston's sexual assault allegations, in week 18 of last year, the Saints were playing the Falcons. The Saints were leading the Falcons 41-17. 1 minute and 10 seconds was left on the clock, and it was counting down. The Saints lined up in victory formation, which is a formation that kind of has an unwritten code. We're either conceding the game if we're down by a bunch and we take a knee, we're conceding, don't hit us, we're not going to hit you, just let us snap the ball, take a knee, end this thing. Or if we're up by a big amount, the code is, hey, we're taking a knee because we're going to show you mercy, all right? We're going to end this thing. And either way, the code is, all right, so we let up on this play. On that play, the Saints decided to line up in victory formation from the 1 yard line and then ran a running play. They handed off to Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams got into the end zone touchdown. Why is that Jameis Winston's fault? Because the call was quarterback kneel. Dennis Allen wanted him to kneel the ball there, and in the huddle, Jameis Winston decided to disregard the order and decided, no, let's do a fake quarterback kneel, and we're going to hand off to Jamal Williams and run the ball right up the middle and get him a touchdown. I get wanting to get your teammate a touchdown. I get that. I even get it in a blowout. I'm fine with that. What I'm not fine with is lining up in victory formation to do it. You violated the code. What I'm not okay with is disobeying your coach's order through the headset. The coach called a play. Disobeying that play is remarkably disrespectful, remarkably insulting, and sure enough, at the end of the game, when Dennis Allen goes to shake Arthur Smith's hand, of course there's words being exchanged because Arthur Smith, the coach of the Falcons at the time, is not happy that you just disrespected his team that way, that you just ran a fake quarterback kneel from the 1 yard line. Making matters worse, after the game, Jameis Winston was completely unapologetic over the matter.
My intention was to lead the team that I've been with the entire year, and we made a collective decision that we wanted to get one of our guys who they fight with blood, sweat, and tears every game in the end zone. and I'm gonna feel good about that.
No regrets.
This is the thing. It's about the team. It's not about regrets.
That's something decided on the sideline after the pick, or did you wait till you got out there to do it?
We decided on the field. I mean, we don't regret. Do we regret for scoring 41 points on them? Do you think we regret that? How do you feel about it? Tell me how you feel about it.
The head coach tells you to kneel it out. You're asking my opinion?
Yes.
I think you should have kneeled it out.
So this dude's been accused by multiple women of sexual assault. He's got discipline issues, and he's honestly not even that good of a quarterback. I'm amazed this guy is still in the NFL. We're talking about a man who played in 7 games last year, threw 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Granted, he was only given 47 pass attempts over the course of those 7 games. Either way, he's just not, his stats just aren't impressive enough. So for the Cleveland Browns, I give them an F on this signing because I don't get it. Like, you could have just flipped a 4th or 5th round pick over to the Chicago Bears, get Justin Fields in the building. Even if you're not planning to sign his 5th year option, fine, get him there. Don't sign his 5th year option. You've got him for $1.6 million this year to be your backup quarterback. You could have done the same thing for Zach Wilson. That might cost less. That might be a 6th or 7th round pick you send over to the Jets. Jets will give you Zach Wilson. You got him for just over $1 million for this year to be your backup quarterback. Those are low risk, high reward moves. So it's an F for the Cleveland Browns from me, but it is an A for Jameis Winston. I mean, I'm amazed that this dude is still in the NFL at all, let alone getting these clowns to still pay him money, to still let him be in this league. I would never trust this man to consistently take care of the football. I would never trust this man to go and get me some wins when I need them. And I would never trust this man to be the face of my organization. All right, final quarterback story of the day. And if you made it this far, you get a cookie. Here it is. The lost Oakland Raiders have signed former Jaguars, Eagles, and Colts quarterback Garnder Minshew to a 2-year, $25 million contract with $15 million fully guaranteed. I give the Raiders a B- for this signing. I don't think Gardner is a long-term solution, but I do think he's an upgrade from Baby Stash. I give Gardner an A. Look, good for him. He found a new home. He turned his Colts campaign last year into a new starting opportunity. Good for Garnder Minshew. All right, that's all the quarterback moves from the last 48-ish hours. Thanks for watching. I'm Mike Adams. I'll catch you next time. Later.